straight from the mayor's mouth, with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Hello everyone and welcome to Straight from the Mayor's Mouth. Welcome back. You got back in one piece from the tour to OROC, mate. Well done, well done.
Well, I think I left some parts of me up there because sitting down now as I speak to you, there's one part of me, which is the part that I'm sitting on, is probably a bit sore.
The gluteus maximus, eh? Hey, not so maximum right now?
Not so maximum. Well, maximum pain, exactly. So it was a successful event and very well organised by Rotary Club of Dubbo South. And
wonderful. This
all started off as the mayoral relay way back in 2013. That was our working title for it in 2013, but we soon changed it to Tour de OROC, raising money for Macquarie Homestay, of course.
Great cause.
And we don't have the final numbers yet because the tour only finished on Saturday.
Yep.
In Cobar. It finished up on Saturday in Cobar, but around, I'm actually going to say we're going to probably hit 150 grand.
Well done.
Now,
well
I
done.
know definitely we've hit 100, but we've got some fundraisers that have occurred along the way and some fundraisers that are still coming and money will flow in. So I think 150 grand, great work by the committee, but all the communities around there. And I do want to just make one special mention to one of the mayors. We invite all the mayors to be a part of it wherever they can. Normally they come and welcome us into each of their towns and talk to us and say how important Macquarie Homestay is for their community. And I always say to the mayors, if you want to get on a bike and ride with us, you're more than welcome. In the very first one in 2013, every mayor got on their bike in their community, some as far as 10 metres, some for the main street.
Some for the photo op, there it was.
Some for the photo op. But they all rode a distance. Again, some was just down the main street, but a couple of the mayors there rode 50 kilometres.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Those two mayors, that was Andrew Lewis from Burke and Billy McAnally from Narromine at the time, didn't speak to me for a month afterwards because they said their bottom was sore.
I'm still in pain.
That's right. In this one, Jason, he's a fairly new mayor from Walgett. He said, well, I'm happy to ride with you from Walgett up to the ridge. So
youth and enthusiasm, eh? All right, there it was.
And so that's 78 kilometres. And if you haven't ridden a push bike, mate, that's a fair effort. So he's jumped on and riding along. And I said, how are you going with Jason? After about 5 or 10 kilometres, he said, my bottom's a bit sore. As we kept going, it was getting sore and sore for him. And he was in a fair bit of pain by the end of it. But full credit to him. And the riders had a huge amount of respect for him because he stuck with it all the way to the end and made the full trip.
Cursing you, let me guess, every single step of the way.
I must admit I haven't spoken to him since, and I don't.
Probably a good idea.
I don't want to talk to him straight away. I'll leave it a week or two and I'll ring him and see how he's going because I'm sure he probably will have some trouble sitting as well.
Put it this way, I think next year, after now age and experiences are now kicked in, you may not necessarily get the same response.
That's right. Or he may do some training before.
Well, he may do some training. He actually had some celebrities join you for this one. There was a certain ex-Australian or Olympic cyclist, wasn't there?
Two. Yeah, we were very privileged. So we had Brad McGee, 2004 Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
He won that in the team time trials. That's the 4,000 metres in the velodrome where they do crazy, incredible speeds.
Yeah.
He also raced in professional teams for Tour de France and their team won the green jersey. It was actually another Aussie, Baden Cook, who won the green jersey, but their team won the green jersey.
Yep.
So he was really good. He joined us for the first 2 days. So that was the Monday and the Tuesday. And we also had Sarah Carrigan, who in that same year, 2004, won a gold medal in the women's road race. 125 kilometres, I think that road race is.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic as well. But she joined us for 4 days. She joined us on Tuesday. So we had both Brad and Sarah ride with us on Tuesday.
Yep.
And she joined us on Tuesday and rode all the way through to Friday.
Did they just sort of ride because they felt it was a good cause to ride for? Or
We always like to get a celebrity rider. And we've had ones like Robbie McEwen in the past. We've had Megan Dunn. We've had Mike Tomalaris, Matt Keenan. So it's always good to add to the prestige of the event, helps advertise the event. So we reach out to various people. And we actually had Sarah lined up for the last event, but then the last event had to be delayed from COVID. So the dates we had lined up, everything was set. Then we had to delay it by about 6 months from a COVID perspective. Then she couldn't make that one. So she was a bit disappointed about that. So she was always going to do the next one.
Yep.
In the meantime, some other conversations, and next thing you know, Brad McGill was on board. So we ended up with 2 celebrity riders this year.
Yeah.
But it was good. And actually, Brad, they both gave talks at various locations. That's one of the attractions. We go to various locations. So you're at an RSL club, a sporties club, whatever it might be, in each of those communities. They do fundraisers there, auctions, etc. But having a guest speaker of that nature, gold medal, and of course, Sarah, for example, brought along her gold medal.
Yes,
and
that always gets a win from the crowd.
It's a fantastic accessory to have to hand around and show people. So people were very excited about that. But Brad actually gave a really interesting talk, and I wrote my mayoral memo on it this week, talking about the power of the peloton, the power of the collective, and how it's so important for the team to work with the team. And he actually turned that into real life and just talked about the fact that people are working together. And Macquarie Homestead is a great example. You've got all these people out there riding. You've got a lot of people from Dubbo. We will never use Macquarie Homestead because Macquarie Homestead is for people outside of Dubbo that don't have some accommodation in Dubbo while they're attending hospital. So he really talked about this power of the collective and how he's really loved the idea that you've got these teams working together. And if any one member of the team decides that they're bigger than the team, then the team is weaker for that individual. And he talked about that in life. Now, his job today is I don't know the exact title, but basically high performance coach for New South Wales Institute of Sport. Now, that might not be the exact title, but along those lines, he talked about that a bit. Now, that's not for cycling. That's for all sports.
Across the board in all sports.
That's right. And so really, he talked a lot about how he tries to apply some of these peloton or collective power examples into all sports and apply that across whatever you're doing in life. So it was actually
such a powerful message.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And actually it was quite opposite when Brad spoke. He said he was a young boy, watched the Olympics and said, wow, that's fantastic. And my big brothers, look at how excited they are. I want to win a gold medal for my big brothers. And so it was all about a gold medal for him from a very young age. Sarah told the opposite story where she was just a kid at school. She grew up in her early days in Bodangora, up in the northern part of the state, but then then they moved to Queensland. But they had this program at school where they said, we're going to do some tests on people and see who would be a good cyclist, and then we might do some training camps with that cyclist or those cyclists. And they picked 8 girls and 8 boys. She missed out.
Oh, really?
She wasn't in the top 8 girls or boys in her year.
Right.
And then one of the girls dropped out for whatever reason. They said, you were 9th, Sarah, so let's slot you in there. And so, okay, good. And she said, I started riding. It was just so fantastic. I'd found my home. And anyway, with that passion and obviously some natural talent thrown in there as well, won a gold medal. So just different stories, and they talk about different stories in the Pro Tour.
I love the fact that in going away and doing this and raising money for such a great cause, you've come across here with 2 people who've achieved pretty extraordinary things in their own life, but are able to apply their life stories and put it into a real life situation for us as well, and sort of translate across for us. So well done, and well done to everybody involved.
And keep in mind, we don't pay these riders. These come along
volunteer base for them
and volunteer their time. Now, we do get them down here and they'll have a night at the zoo. We kind of offer them something to reward them for their time.
Thank you. Yeah,
so they'll come back with their family and spend a night at Zufari, and that's a fantastic little reward for them. And so they don't pay for anything, but these people could command easily $10,000 on the speaking circuit.
Oh, yeah.
But they believe, when we explain the cause to them, they believe in the cause enough that they say, well, I'm happy to come and contribute my time, and very special. So we told them that we felt very privileged riding beside gold medalists, but they actually felt very privileged to be part of it as well. So I was very impressed with both of them.
That's such a great story, mate. Well done. Well done to everyone involved.
Yeah, thanks.
So after being out there on the bike all week, did you actually manage to get back at any stage for the council meeting during the week? Because there was a council meeting during the week. Or did you just simply do what I would probably do if I'm out around Warren away, whatever, probably just jump onto one of the video links and say, howdy guys, this is me. What did you do?
Well, how do you think about that? And it's pretty hard to chair a meeting remotely because you're trying to keep an eye on everyone in the room and see if anyone's hand goes up. So I thought about that, and I obviously put a lot of emphasis on my role as the mayor. And even though I'm out riding around raising money, my primary role is to be the mayor, and one of those primary roles is to chair a meeting. The last two at OROC...
Wait a minute. You were out at Warren and Cove and that sort of stuff, weren't you?
Correct. And
did you get back for the meeting on that Tuesday night?
Well, the last time we did Tour de Rock, we ended up in Cobar on the council meeting day.
Right.
And so I had to work out a way to get from Cobar, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon we arrived there, back to Dubbo. Now, I've got a friend that happens to own a plane, and I was talking to him about that, and so, gee, I'm going to try and make it back. And he said, well, I love flying. I'm happy to come out and pick you up. And I went, really? Like, that's a lot of money. He said, no, I can't take money because I'm a private pilot, so I can't take money, but I just love flying, so I'm happy to come out and pick you up.
Right.
So he flew out to Cobar on that occasion, picked me up, flew me back in, and then after the meeting, my wife drove me back out that night, ready to ride the next day.
Jeez, I love the commitment of everybody there. That's impressive.
It was. Now, this time, I thought, it's a big ask for him to fly out again. But he said he loved flying, so I'll ask him. Unfortunately, he happened to be overseas this time.
Right, okay.
And I thought, what am I going to do? Now, the timing was a little bit different this time, but Thursday of last week started at Lightning Ridge.
Yeah.
Now, we've changed around our model a little bit and we're trying to do shorter days on the bike. We started at Lightning Ridge. Most of us were up about 4:30 a.m. on Thursday. Then we had...
It's in the morning, by the way, folks.
4:30 a.m., that's right.
Yes, that's right.
Then we had the first part of that day as a bus trip, which was unusual because normally we're riding everywhere, but we're trying to do some shorter days this time. So the first part was a bus trip, get the bikes loaded up, and then I went across in a car to get there and unload bikes before the bus arrived. So the bus, I jumped in the car about 5:30. The bus came across about 6 o'clock. We had all the bikes unloaded, ready to go. The bus turned up 7 o'clock. We're on our bikes. We ride from Walgett, so the bus took it down to Walgett. We ride from Walgett to Narrowonah. It's just under 100 kilometres.
I was going to say there'd have to be about 100k, surely.
Yeah, it's about maybe 97 off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So we rode to Narrowonah from Walgett. We were due to arrive in Bree at 1:19 p.m. We actually arrived there a little earlier than that. Then I had someone lined up with their car and them to drive, to jump in the car with me in the car with them, still in my cycling gear, mind you, to drive from there to Dubbo.
So you're up at 4. You've gone out there to Narrowonah. So we're now around about, 2 o'clock, you say?
It was closer to 1 p.m. than 2 p.m. And then as soon as we arrived, we jumped in the car to drive to Dubbo.
From Narrowonah, driven back to Dubbo.
So we drove back. I didn't drive, he drove.
To get back here for the council meeting?
At 5:30. So I got back, had a little bit of time to sleep, enough time to just dive through the shower out of my gear.
The word commitment should be sort of looked up in the dictionary, picture of you next to it.
Put my suit on now. I was kind of hoping for a short meeting, but I'm not going to cut it short because I've got something to do. It ended up being maybe not quite a 4-hour meeting, so I got back home about 9:30.
Don't tell me you then got in the car and drove back out to Narrowonah.
Well, I actually had a little bit to eat very quickly. Oh, no. And then we were in the car before 10, and again, this lovely friend called Damien.
What is it, about 4 hours per hour? What is it?
About 4 hours. So
you got back there at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, by the time I then found somewhere to sleep, because I didn't want to wake up all the guys. We do a swag night each year.
Yeah, right.
They were out in a hall on swag. They didn't want to wake them up.
So what you were going back into a bed? You're going into a swag?
Well, I didn't in the end because I thought I'd wake everyone up. So I found someone's house to stay at, and they had a mattress on the floor.
Knock on the door. You don't like a spare room? No, why not?
So I got to bed about 2:30. Then we're up at before 6, ready to ride again by 7. So it was.
Where'd you go to the next day?
It was only a 120-odd kilometre ride across.
Yeah, of course it was only 120 k's.
That's
easy. Oh, no. So you got back. Okay, so you got back for the council meeting.
Yep.
Back here for that after a huge, huge day.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And then we had good outcomes from the council meeting.
Okay, well, let's get after this drill and we'll start talking about it. All right, so let's jump into it. The council meeting. So you've come back to chair it. There would have been some good things on the agenda, I suggest, the fact to talk through. The first one, Dream Festival. Now, this is something that we've talked about a little bit, and it looks as though there's been a decision made now in regards to how the Dream Festival is potentially going to move forward. And there's some expression of interest here, which is going to obviously affect how it's going to move forward. So talk us through it, Matt. How's it going to look right now?
The recommendation from our committees, if you remember the standing committees, was to go out to an EOI process for the Dream. Now, people talked about the fact that they didn't want to lose a Dream and they wanted council to continue with it. There was a bit of support around there for Dream, definitely. And so that's fine. Council was not of the opinion they wanted to can the Dream. It was really, council said, we don't think we're the appropriate organisation to run it. What's nice now is we're going to advertise expressions of interest. There's $40,000 on the table for someone to basically pick that up and run with it and create what you will from the Dream.
So they have to be an established group already in town or can you be a group of people that sort of get together to form a group? You
could do that because it's an EOI process. One of the great things about an EOI process is there's flexibility.
Yeah, okay.
So you've got the ability to say, here's what our proposal is. It's not like something that's tender, for example, is very rigid. So if we had tenders, if we called tenders for the supply of a piece of equipment, we would specify what that equipment was. You'd put in tenders for that piece of equipment. And they're fairly strict in terms of the conditions there. Whereas an EOI process, you can tell us what you're going to do. You can convince us that you're the right group or organisation. So you could go out and form a new group. You could have other groups that exist out there already to form a separate group made up of these other members.
Okay.
We want the Dream to continue. There's no doubt about that. There's certainly this resolution says that we want the Dream to continue, but we don't want to run it. The great part is now these different groups that have contacted councils, and I've certainly had some and other councils have had some as well, this is the chance for those groups to say, okay, you want the dream to continue, then here's your chance to make it continue. And you know you've got $40,000 to help you out.
Is there going to be any assistance still from council in regards to this? Will council, like council, not actual councillors, but council, is there anybody there that they can actually, if I've got a group there that's sort of thinking, look, I wouldn't mind putting an expression of interest in. I've got a few ideas on how we could run the Dream Festival, but I still feel as though we need some assistance from council. Is council still prepared to want to provide some support like in the past?
It would really be the same level of support as any other event. So if you were planning some other event, a colour run or a motor fest or any other event, there's certain support there that council gives you to help make the event successful. So that might be advertising on some of our What's On in Dubbo pages. There might be just some help in terms of behind the scenes things. How do you get your traffic plans done? So some little bits and pieces there, but certainly
not so much the coordination of it.
Definitely not the coordination, definitely not the running of it. You really, that organisation wants to do that or needs to do that. And we talked about Tour OROC before, for example. We don't really ask any support in terms of in-kind of that, but it might be on What's On in Dubbo. But in that example, Rotary Club is helping with some of the behind-the-scenes things. So things like insurances, the Rotary Club, that is the organiser of that, is doing that type of thing. So it'd really be the support that any other group would get, but the $40,000 is the amount that at least you'd be able to get to help you with the advertising or with different things you might need as a part of that. So we are going to continue.
Is there a time frame about the expression of interest? Like when does it have to be in by?
Well, there'll be a 28-day expression of interest process, and we're hopeful.
Hasn't begun yet, though, has it?
Well, it probably. I hope they've basically got it out by the time people listen to this. It'd probably be out there already because we wanted to do it quickly.
Okay.
We talked about it at the meeting and said that we really wanted to get out there to give any group that's successful enough time. Ideally, we would like to get it back to a decision at the April council meeting.
Oh, okay, yep.
Now, the staff didn't promise they'd have it back by then. And I suppose it will depend on how many EOIs we get and the complexity of those. But we want to give any group as much time as possible. So if we made the decision in the April meeting, and let's say it was around that September timeframe again, then you've probably got 5 months to get it organised, which I think would be
Is
enough.
that the expected thing, that we go back around again around September for the Dream Festival, or is that going to be up to how the EI sort of comes up?
Well, it would really be up to the group that ends up securing the successful process.
Yeah.
It'll be up to them to say, we want to run it in December or September or whatever it might be. September, that sort of time frame has been when it's been run before, but that doesn't mean it has to be then. So that'll be up to that group. And again, that'll be the sort of thing we consider in the EOI process.
Okay. Do you go to the Your Say website to sort of get the details in regards to the expression of interest, or is there just go to the council website? Where would I go to?
Yeah, Your Say is probably the logical place to go for anything these days. You hit the nail on the head. Good work.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll have some media releases out about it as well and let people know about it because there's obviously some interest out there. And there's been some inquiries already made about it just after the council meeting.
Oh,
so there's some keen groups out there.
Awesome. Now, the Wiradjuri Tourism Centre. This has been ongoing for quite a while now in regards to how this is moving forward, but it looks as though during the week the council has decided to proceed with the Wiradjuri Tourism Centre funding proposal and to await the outcome of the funding application for the Growing Regions Program, Round 1. So this is a federal government money you're looking to sort of see if you're going to secure. Is that the plan?
Well, this is one we've got an application in at the moment, and you're right, it is a federal government program, and there's a 50-50 funding process in this particular proposal.
Yep.
Now, this, in round numbers, it's a little bit under that, but let's say round numbers, $15 million is the estimation for the build for this particular Wiradjuri Tourism Centre, or Wiradjuri Cultural Tourism Centre. Now, we've been a bit clever in the way we've managed some of our grants, and so we've, rather than us put $7.5 million in, then we've got the potential for Create New South Wales, which is a state government body, to put in a large chunk of the 50% that's got to be provided outside the federal government. Bottom line is, for approximately a $15 million build or project, council will need to put in about $2.2 million. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. Personally, I'm pretty comfortable with that proposal.
Normally it's about a 50-50 in so many things these days, isn't it?
Well, it is, and the federal government's saying that. But because we've got this state government money, the 50-50 ends up being a lot less than 50-50. And if I think back to Barden Park was similar, where we got some money out of the state government, we've got some money out of the federal government, and we put in a little bit of money and we end up with a wonderful
world-class facility.
And it seems to me that it's fair and reasonable if we're going to have something for our community, us putting in a bit of money is okay. Now, there was a notice of motion that was put forward at the council meeting on Thursday night to withdraw our funding application from that. And that was discussed, debated at length.
So to withdraw the $2 million that council want to put forward?
Withdraw our application. So we've got...
I'll withdraw the application for the $7 million.
For the $7.5 million. So we've got...
Why would anyone want that to be the case?
Well, that was the debate on Thursday night. So the $5 million we've got there from Creek New South Wales is there, but we've got a time frame on that and when to use that. And if we don't get the rest of the money, we lose that money as well. But the application we've got in with the federal government, again, for that $7.5 million, again, round numbers, $7.5 million. But the notice of motion was to withdraw that application. Now, one of the issues that councillors had with that was that the decision on that, we've been told, is any time now, maybe in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. When we had that application put in January, we were told it would be around about a 6 to 8 week time frame. Yeah. Well, you look at 6 to 8 weeks from, say, early mid-January, we're kind of about now-ish, and we've been in discussion with the department. And
so we're a week or two out from hearing from the federal government as to whether or not we're going to get $7 million, and a notion of motion was put forward by a councillor there at the meeting there during the week to say we're going to pull out of that $7 million proposal. The idea of that money coming forward, we want to pull out of that right now. Again, I'm sort of scratching my head here as to why anyone would feel as though that's a necessary thing when you're only a week or two out. Like, wouldn't it just simply be better to sit back and go, oh, well, let's wait and see what happens?
And that was probably the general feeling of councillors, that we're so close now. And even if you get that funding from the federal government, you're not locked in. The minute you get it, you don't have to take it. So that would be another point that would be a good point to say, okay, let's have a look at this. And normally we'll get told about the success or otherwise of that before the announcement's made. So if we're told about it, it would be very easy for us to very quickly, okay, let's have another analysis. This is there. Any reason why you don't go ahead. Now, there might be sometimes you don't go ahead. There might be some reasons, for whatever reason, you don't go ahead with a funding proposal even though you've got the grant money. But in this case, I think councillors just said, we're so close to finding out. And I think, and this is probably more a personal opinion rather than what was discussed at the council meeting, I think we damage our reputation by putting in the application, going through a process. We've resolved it before at council, so it's been a council resolution to put in the application.
Yep.
The staff have done all that work, and then a week or two out, we withdraw. And the federal government would say, well, what's going on over there in Dubbo?
Well,
what happens the next time we see an application from them? Should we worry about wasting our time? Are they going to pull out at the last minute?
Oh.
So
it's a slap in the face to anybody who put the proposal in the first place. And also it's a slap in the face to the federal government for turning around. And there are people up there who would be assessing the application and going, and there'd be a lot of time and effort would go through any assessment of an application for $7 million. They're not just going to give that money away. And so to turn around a week or two out and suddenly to turn around and go, we don't really want that money anymore. You'd have some questions to answer, I'd suggest.
Yeah, and there's some discussion about then looking at round two, and there's different ways to do it. There's a 90-10 funding model where you can get 90% of the funding, and then if it's led by an Aboriginal organisation, then they can put in 10% of the funding rather than 50% of the funding. But we don't know when round two would start. We don't know when round two would be closed. You don't know how sure you are to get that money. So it seemed like putting it off and not really knowing about the outcome there. So in the end, councillors said, we're so close to it, let's continue on with the application. Let's not go and rock the boat with what we've done already and put the application in.
You've got $5 million secured already from state government. Chances are, hopefully, fingers crossed, in 2 weeks' time at the maximum, we should have another $7 million. There's $12 million. You're going to have a couple of $1 million.
2.2 it'll cost us, basically.
2.2, sort of from the council's point of view, and against what's going to be, I'd suggest, a world-class facility potentially with this too. Something that's going to attract attention from all over the world because there's nothing like it around the place.
Well, one of the things I'm excited about is some people look at that and say, well, it's just from an Aboriginal perspective this is important, but I actually think from our tourism offering in Dubbo, we've got some good tourism offerings.
Yep.
This will add to it, potentially keep people in Dubbo longer. We know that 350,000 people a year come to the zoo.
Yep.
Well, let's keep them here longer with other offerings. But you're right, it's different. It's not something like this anywhere else around.
No.
But when people come to regional areas, they expect to be able to see some Aboriginal tourism. So let's deliver what we want. So I'm pretty excited about the project. I would love to see it built. I'd love to see us proceed with it. I'd love to see us get the grant funding, but let's see if we get that first. Let's wait for that answer. If we get a no, well, it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
We could put an application in round 2 then, and we missed out on round 1. If we get a yes, then we can make a decision whether to go ahead or not at that particular point.
Oh, well done for making what I believe is the right decision. Might have talked me through this next one, here, Matt, in regards to a rejection of a notion of motion regarding the Narromine Narwonah waste to energy plant. I've no idea 2 things about this. The Narwonah waste energy plant, I don't know what that is, so you might have to explain that to me, what that's all about, and why are we rejecting and putting a motion forward about something that happens in Narromine, when Narromine's not even part of our jurisdiction.
Well, we rejected it. That's probably the main reason we rejected
I'm glad to see it's rejected, so you might be able to answer those 2 questions for me in regards to what's happened there.
So there was another notice of motion that was put forward by a councillor, and in that it was asking for the CEO to bring a report forward to give us details about where this proposal for the Narwonah waste-to-energy plant is up to, and then also give us details about the project and its alignment to EPA policy settings. So this is a project that's not even on the books of Narromine. It's been discussed. There's no proposal that's been submitted. There's no DA. There's nothing that's actually definitely gone forward from Narromine. There's certainly been some discussion about it. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
And this would be somewhere where they would take waste products and they would convert them to energy, and you might talk about that being an incinerator type process. That's oversimplifying it, but that's the type of process. Now, some people are worried about it. Some people in Narromine are worried about that. I've actually had some inquiries. Personally, some people have asked me what Dubbo Regional Council is doing about it. And I've said to those people that this is a project in the Narromine Shire Council. Narromine's got their own council. Narromine's got their own mayor.
Yep. I
suggested to them that they make those inquiries through to Narromine because it's not a project that we have anything to do with because it's not in our LGA. And I've also spoken to the Narromine mayor and said, I've directed some people your way because it's your project. He said, that's fine. That makes sense because it is our project. And again, I feel like we've got a boundary. We've got 7,536 square kilometres in our LGA. We've got enough to do in our LGA. I'm not going to start looking over the fence at other projects in other LGAs and start telling them how to do their projects.
These are just discussion points, aren't they? Like you just made a point there of the fact that there's been nothing put forward to any council in regards to a concrete proposal in regards to it. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, that's right. So there's been and there's definitely been discussions at council level, like at council meetings, but there's no DA submitted for it, so it hasn't progressed very far yet. And I think councillors, we discussed it on Thursday night at the council meeting, and I suppose a couple of things with that. One, it was obviously a project in another LGA. Why are we wasting our staff time to go and do this? But also when you start to get to the point about looking how a project might align to EPA policy settings, you're then looking at a proposal.
But you have to have some sort of proposal put forward first before you can make an analysis of the EPA.
Well, you're right, but even just the discussion about it, you're then taking a point about or discussion points about a project in another LGA, potential project in another LGA, and then looking at EPA policy settings from the state government and aligning or comparing those to a potential project in another LGA, you really just think, well, what are you doing? Next thing, are we going to be asked to look at how the parking meter policy at Sydney City Council works? It just it seemed like from councillors that it was something that we didn't like the idea of.
And what's the concern about this then? Let's say it's like an incinerator type situation. Did this council maybe bring it forward as a point of discussion because they're worried about, I don't know, the impact of the smoke or whatever passing into our jurisdiction of our area?
No idea.
Okay, fair call.
It was a discussion.
Yeah.
There was notice of motion brought forward, which any councillor can do,
Yeah.
and bring it forward, and we discussed it, and then council said, we don't think we should be involved in that, so we rejected that notice of motion.
Okay, all right. This next one here. Oh, I like this. Are we finally getting some money from solar energy farms, are we? Because I always thought the fact that solar, they all like to sort of see themselves a bit untouchable in regards to giving any money to councils. If we've finally got to a point whereby there's councils managed to make it, get some sort of term of agreements with a solar plant.
Correct. Now,
Ooh,
we haven't got it signed on the dotted line yet.
Okay.
But we had a proposal that we took out to public exhibition.
Yeah.
It's a planning agreement with the Glen solar farm, which is out on Manor Road. And we had no comments from the public. So this was really just going through a process where we put things on public display and then we come back. So now we've got that approval. Council has said, yes, okay, we're happy with the proposal. There's no feedback from the community about the proposal. Please go ahead and sign it with the solar farm. Now, it's not as good as what we get from wind farms. It's $200,000 a year for 5 years, so $1 million basically. And that's to be used for developing some sort of affordable housing process. But again, ignore the detail of what it is. We're getting some money. Again, we're happy with it. The solar farm hopefully is happy with it. We've had negotiations with them up to this point in time, so hopefully they'll still sign it. But this is the first solar farm in our LGA that we'll have a planning agreement signed with. So again, it's not
quite
signed
a momentous
yet.
moment, because
Well,
I know we've had plenty of discussions in regards to the fact that solar farms have been historically very resistant in wanting to sort of put any money forward, whereas the wind a bit different. Thank you, federal and state government, for your support in this matter, by the way, or lack of. So is this been something though that council has actually managed to facilitate by themselves, or has there been any input at all by state or federal on this?
All council, and that's one of the problems, is that we're doing all this negotiation with every one of these proponents, one-on-one. We've got 37 proposals, as you know, or different projects potentially going ahead in our res. And so we're going to have all these discussions with every single one of those. But this has been a good little victory here.
Yeah.
Again, I say that, and it hasn't been signed, but I'm sure it will be.
Yep.
I'm sure they won't pull out now. Again, about a third of the value of a wind farm proposal. So if this was the same project with the same value from a wind farm, it would have been about triple this. But we're getting somewhere. We're slowly getting somewhere. I would still like it to be legislated at state and federal, as we talk about often. But well done to our staff, and thank you to the solar farm company to basically say, well, at least we've gotten this far with it, and hopefully we'll see more of these things happening.
Oh, look, absolutely 100%. Now, the Community Services Fund. This is round 2 of giving out some money here. So it looks as though $22,867 was given out to different groups in our community during the week by council, all for great cause. Looking through this little list here, they're great causes and excellent organisations. Talk us through it. Who did we give the money to?
So Dubbo Base Hospital Pink Ladies got $4,800.
Excellent.
St Bridget's Catholic Church Craft Group got $1,000.
Nice.
Pink Angels got $7,918.
Awesome.
SOMAD got $1,649.
So that's the Songwriters and Original Musicians Association of Dubbo, by the way.
You know them well.
Oh, I do actually.
And the Wellington Family and Domestic Violence Collective got $7,500.
That's great.
Now, there were some that missed out, and they missed out for a couple of different reasons. One, I think we've talked about it before, acquittals. When people get money previously and they haven't done the acquittal from that money, they're not eligible for future ones. So we really encourage those organisations to put their acquittals in.
So that basically means that once you get the money, you have to sort of then sign off what you've spent the money on and to show the fact that this is what we actually spent the money on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. If you receive some money, it only seems fair and reasonable with public money that you actually demonstrate that the money was spent on what you said it was going to be spent on, or if it was a change, why that was changed. It was basically saying, here's the proof that we've spent public money in the correct way. So it's not too much to ask for. And some weren't applicable. So there are guidelines around the money, and some looked at the guidelines and thought they might have been applicable. And when we've looked at it, we said, no, they're not applicable. So, so $22,867. And that's something that we do every 6 months for that particular fund. So well done to those organisations.
Absolutely.
And I love giving out those checks to those organisations because I love hearing about exactly how they're going to use that money.
Well, you've got such a broad little group there too of groups there as well. So well done to all involved. Now, we've spoken at length about this one as well in regards to some of the benefits that we can gain from the res around here. And one of the big things is community funding. We just talked about that in regards to solar funding. So hopefully that'll come through, as you say there, Matt. But this one is a definite. This comes through now. We've had a couple of these. The Bodangora Wind Farm Community Benefit Fund. Now, council gave away $22,867. Well, folks, $73,000 has just been given away to groups in Wellington for some outstanding projects due to the Bodangora Wind Farm. The Community Benefit Fund.
That's right. This is one of these advantages we talk about with various projects. Now, again, there's a wind farm. Now, this was negotiated a long time ago. In fact, the old Wellington Shire Council negotiated this community benefit fund. So by today's standards for wind farms, it's a smaller amount in terms of if you look at that percentage as a capital investment value, but it's still $73,000 into the community that we wouldn't have received otherwise. This is from one project.
Yep.
We talk about it as we get all these projects going through, and if we can get all the 1.5% from those capital investment values, we might end up with as much as $10 million a year being handed out.
Now, a lot of that's going into Wellington, isn't it? Is that right? Or?
A lot of it will go to Wellington and around different parts of Wellington. So, again, the Bodangora Fund should be used in Wellington projects. So, to give you an idea of what that $73,000 is going to, Red Cross Wellington branch, $990 is going there. Then you've got the Wellington Senior Citizens, 3256. You've got Wellington Men's Shed, $2,450. Arana Support Service, $18,000. Wellington Eisteddfod Society, $9,421. Wellington Amateur Swimming Club, $9,588. Binjang Community Radio, $9,295. And the Rotary Club of Wellington, $20,000.
See, that's significant money that will make a significant impact. And I know we've talked about in the past how these groups can make what appears to be, I wouldn't say it's a relatively small figure by any stretch for these figures. These are significant figures. But it's amazing how far they can make these figures stretch.
Exactly right. And that's what I love doing when we hand out these checks, is just talking to them and saying, how are you going to use that money? How's it going to make a difference in the community? So that is exciting, and that's one wind farm.
Yeah.
That's a smaller wind farm that was negotiated many years ago. So more of these will happen, and we'll get better negotiations.
To a point, if you're saying $10 million a year, $10 million, so you're saying $10 million a year.
Yeah, now that's if everything goes according to plan. That's from Energy Co, that's from the various proponents, and that's at 1.5%.
Yeah.
But again, it can make a significant difference in the community.
Well, the advice there is to all of the groups in Wellington in particular and surrounding, there'll be, and obviously Dubbo will benefit to a certain extent, but a lot of these areas where the wind farms and the solar farms and the other farms are all setting up at, a lot of it's going to be impacted there into Wellington area. That's that sort of zone. So therefore, the money's going to go back in there. The advice is quite simple, isn't it, really? To all of those groups and organisations, get yourself organised. Prepare for the fact that this type of money is going to be potentially coming around. Be ready to jump in when you need to jump in to get the money, because this sort of stuff can make a massive difference.
Yeah, that's right. This is a potential economic game changer for Wellington. And keep in mind that these various projects, there will be certain rules around the planning agreements about where that money will be spent. So they'll be localised to those various projects. But when you start adding all these bits and pieces around the Wellington community, again, not all in Wellington, in different parts around there, it can really make an economic difference to this community.
Absolutely, A couple of podcasts back, Matt, we talked about this, and I thought at the time that it had sort of all been sort of settled down from the point of it that council had made a decision here to go to the Dubbo RSL Club with a proposal of we're prepared to buy the Dubbo Bowling Club for X amount of dollars, and it was rejected by the RSL Club at the time. And I thought that was probably the end of the negotiations, but it looks as though council's reconsidered that position and have gone back to the Dubbo RSL Club with an increased offer to purchase the Dubbo City Bowling Club.
Well, it's actually something where the RSL Club did invite all the tenderers, I don't know how many there were, to put in an updated expression of interest. Now, I can only assume, without any other knowledge, that you would do that because you want people to put an increased figure in.
That would make sense, wouldn't it? That's
you
right.
Probably don't want people to go and drop the figure. And if you had someone that you're already happy with in the first place, you'd probably take their offer. So they've gone out to the various people that submitted an offer and said, please submit a new offer. And we consider that at the council meeting. We considered the details of that in a confidential part of the meeting.
Yep.
But the outcome of that is public. As with all, anytime we do anything in confidential, there'll be the resolution is made public. And in this case, the resolution was that we will we'll resubmit an updated expression of interest to the RSL Club for 74 Wiradjuri Street or the Greens or the old WC Bowling Club, whichever way you want to refer to it.
Yep.
And we'll make an increase of 10% on the original expression of interest. I can't tell you the original expression of interest price, but we're going to increase the offer by 10%. And again, I don't know what's happening with the other offers that they've received, but if that's successful, fantastic. We'll purchase that. And if it's not, then we won't go ahead with it.
So if we're successful in actually getting and purchasing the Dubbo City Bowling Club, is there a business plan in place in regards to what you probably do with that?
Not yet.
Okay.
And it would just be, I think the logic from council is that precinct, we've got the Western Plains Cultural Centre, we've got the sporting ovals there. It gives us more flexibility around that precinct. The building, I can't see that we'd retain the building long term. The building, as we talked about before,
fairly aged building, isn't it?
It's an aged building, and there was a bit of a collapse in the ceiling where some water came through recently. So it's probably not something we would keep long term. We might keep it short term and lease it out for various uses, but I think you'd then start to develop some sort of plan about what to do with that particular area there.
Okay. Now, the livestock markets, the Dubbo Regional Livestock Markets, it's something that the council owns and runs out there. It looks as though as part of a discussion's been had in regards to maybe looking at an expression of interest here to potentially sell it or even lease it to private or group organisations. Is this what's maybe looking at out there? Or
it's been something that has been discussed. I remember discussing it way back in Dubbo City Council days about the best way to run the sale yards. And that's a complicated area and certainly a complicated thing when we're looking at it. Now, if you look at ones around the state, for example, how many are still council operated and how many have been leased or sold, for example. And when we look at that, you've got Wagga and Forbes, as well as us, obviously, that are still council operated. And we've got some, we actually go quite well in terms of the numbers there with our sale yards compared to, say, Wagga and Forbes. Then you've got some privately operated ones. So, for example, Tamworth is run by a private organisation. Northern Rivers is leased out. Central Tablelands, Southeastern, they're both private. You've still got, where is it? Inverell is private. You've got Maitland sale yards private. Deniliquin is leased out. And then you've still got a couple other council operated ones. Sorry, you've got Corowa, Griffith, Gunnedah and Cowra are all run by council. So you've got a bit of a mixture there. And so we thought, let's have a look at what's happening in the market. And rather than, as we talked about a little while ago, rather than a tender process, we said if we go out to an EIO process, then we get different information coming back. So we've made a decision. We're going out with an EOI. We're saying if you'd like to lease these sale yards, long-term lease, if you'd like to buy the sale yards and you want to take complete control of them, then submit something to tell us how we're going or how you're going to do that and what you're prepared to pay for it. So there'd be different models. And when we looked at it once before, we had offers came in where there'd be an upfront payment, for example, and then an ongoing lease. If you leased it, you'd want to work out how you manage the facility. So if you're going to lease it, does that mean you take over all the ongoing maintenance and just pay a lease fee to council? Or are you expecting council to do the major maintenance work and you'll take care of the minor day-to-day work and how much you'll pay council then? Or do you want to just buy the whole lot and say, that's it, we'll own the facility, we'll own the land, and that's ours forevermore and we'll run it as a sale yard? So it's really up to different organisations, and there are specialist organisations out there to go and do whatever you might do. There's Palisade, Regional Infrastructure, there's different private companies out there.
Are these groups that already have sale yards around the place, are they? Or?
Yeah, that's right. So there are operators out there that do absolutely understand, and again, they're specialists in running those. So how long do we keep running it for? What do we do with it? Let's have a look at all of that.
Are the current, in this current sort of capacity, the sale yards a profitable thing for the council?
It's an interesting question. On a day-to-day basis, yes, I would say they're profitable, but when it comes to the actual infrastructure,
ongoing costs and things, or
the major maintenance and the depreciation, when you start to factor those parts of it in, then it's touch and go whether or not you would say they're profitable. On a cash flow basis, yes, but on those big picture, and we've been successful in the past on gaining some government grants to take care of some of that infrastructure. But if I had a business, let's say I owned a privately run business where I'm making money from a cash flow perspective, but the only way I can maintain the asset is by getting someone else to give me money, would I describe that as profitable? Not quite sure I'd say it was, because you really have to take into account those ongoing maintenance, major upgrades, or the depreciation. You should be taking those into account as part of the overall profit part of that. So it's an interesting one. It's one that's a bit tricky. Do we need, as a council, to be running things like sale yards and childcare centres and caravan parks. We need to be running these various assets that we've got. We'll work that out. I'll tell you in a few months' time.
Yeah, so we're looking at then the expression of interest to last for, what, 2 months on this one, or what's the time frame?
I think the idea here is that we'll get a report back by maybe June or July. I don't know a time frame for when those EOIs will close, but this one will probably need a bit more time to give organisations to be able to look at the information and submit something, because you're talking about some major dollars here.
Yep.
And
I'd imagine, that's right, it'd be a significant outlay. I'd imagine anyone who wants to purchase it, for say.
Yeah, purchase or lease. And again, we want them to do the best that we can for us, and to do that, they probably want to look at our figures and basically determine what they can get out of it as well.
Okay. Quick update here in regards to the waste facilities to go cashless from the 1st of July. I think we did actually talk about this a few podcasts back. Is the decision for this, I did hear something about this the other day, is it a way of deterring, I suppose two things. Is it a way of deterring anyone who has bad intentions to want to go out there and to break in and try to feel as though there might be some cash on the facilities? Has that been an issue in the past? And is it also the fact too that it's sort of reflective of where society's moving?
Very small percentage of people actually use cash when they go to the waste facilities. So part of it is, yes, if there's cash on there, some people might break in. We've had $470,000 worth of damage to facilities in the last 12 months. So
$500,000 worth of damage.
Yeah, December 2022 to December 2023.
What, just sort of people breaking into these places looking for cash or easy to access items or something?
Thinking there's going to be cash on, because the reality is, what is there that you could steal and then go and sell? Probably not a lot.
Yep.
You're breaking because you think there's cash there. And even when there is cash there, which there will be till the end of June, then it's not much cash there. It's not like we're keeping
you're not going to be
huge
keeping thousands of dollars sitting on site. And plus, I suppose a lot of these facilities like this one you're talking about here, this one in particular out there at Dubbo, it's a bit isolated. There's not a lot of things around it, is it?
No, there's not. And so people might think it's easy to go and do that when no one's watching. But this not only applies to Dubbo, which is the Wild Angel Waste and Recycling Facility, it applies to the Wellington Waste Transfer Station and the transfer stations at Stewarttown, Geary, Ballymore, Yamundry and Toongi.
Okay, so it's across the board.
Across the board, that's right. But again, I suppose the thing that's really pushing this as well is we've got infrastructure that's set up to be able to take cash for a very small percentage. And I think I did see a report there previously that talked about maybe 1.5% of all transactions that go through all those were with cash.
That's it.
So you've
98.5% are all using cards these days.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
What people do
I don't know the last time I had cash in my wallet.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard that about you. So
That's right. My shout. Where's he gone? Where's he?
Left my wallet at home.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, so anyway,
Very
keep an eye out for
pockets.
that. From the 1st of July, use any of the facilities. I suppose it's really just a public service announcement. Just be aware that they'll only accept some sort of electronic payment, not cash.
Toongi Mine. Major announcement made during the week in regards to the potential development of this. Now, this is a rare earth mineral mine out of Toongi. Is it? Look, it's been in the planning. It's been talked about for a long time. Are we actually getting pretty close now to something happening out there, are we? Or what's actually going on? We are.
So I'll go back one step. It's interesting. It's a polymetallic deposit out there at Toongi.
Oh, stop with these big words.
Deposit's not that big a word. So often it's referred to as rare earths, and I try not to talk about it as rare earth because if someone said to me it's a rare earth mine, I think those deposits are rare. But
well, that makes sense, doesn't it? That's
does,
what it's called.
But the more I talk to people, they actually say that some of these rare earths are not actually that rare. I'm not sure exactly why they're called rare earths. But if we look at it, so polymetallic deposit, it's got light and heavy rare earths. It's got zirconium, niobium, hafnium, but it's also got...
You don't have to swear at me.
It's also got ones like neodymium.
Oh, it's easy for you to say.
Not really. Praseodymium, terbium, dysprosium, and then the ones that I talk about, critical minerals like zirconium, niobium, and hafnium.
They sound like those Roman emperors to me.
That might be the case. These are incredibly important in the world, our future world, where we're going for things like EVs and electronics. And that's where they'll be used. Now,
I noticed that there's no lithium there.
No lithium, apparently. And maybe there is some lithium there. But
is lithium rare then?
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's rarer. I'm not sure.
Right, I don't know.
But certainly it doesn't seem like the Dubbo project will have those, will have lithium there. It's more than one
the other
mentioned
EMs.
there. Lots of the EMs, but not the lithium. But the minor issue that's the case out there at the Australian Strategic Minerals Mine, the Dubbo project as it's called, is that they need about $1.7 billion.
That's
billion.
Yeah, that's you call that a minor issue, do you? Just got to find $1.5 billion.
Well,
wow.
$1.7 billion to secure that money to basically go ahead and do it now.
Geez, there must be a lot of those rare, what do you call them?
Rare earths or
polymetallic.
Yeah, polymetallic deposits there.
Wow.
So it is a big mine. It's a potential. And the good part about this mine is that the mining side of it, the actual digging stuff out of the ground, will be a small part of the mine. The major part of it will be the processing plant. Yeah. So rather than take the raw ore and send it overseas to be processed, the processing will be done here in Dubbo or out at Toongi more accurately.
That's actually pretty rare, to be honest.
Yeah, it is pretty rare.
We don't get a lot of that.
Maybe that's where the rare part comes from.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's exciting because that'll be highly skilled, highly paid people working in a processing plant as a major part of that.
So have they secured the funding? Is this the announcement? Like, is this where we're sitting at?
Well, they've had Export Finance Australia have said previously that you've got access to a very generic number here, $200 million. Right. So that's good. But they've just secured from the Export-Import Bank of the United States, they've got a debt funding package they've just announced of $923 million.
Oh, wow.
Now, that means...
there's nearly $1 billion of it.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. So you're getting a bit over $1 billion of the $1.7 billion.
Yeah.
They've also... I've had meetings here in Dubbo with representatives from Korea, from Hyundai Engineering. Now, Hyundai Engineering have done some work already with the mine. They've done some of the initial planning work so that once it goes ahead, they've got that part in place. And if it goes ahead, or when it goes ahead more accurately, Hyundai have got the contract to actually do some of the initial build. So,
aren't you heading over to Korea soon?
Yeah, so this is part of the reason to go to Korea, which we'll talk about a bit later in the podcast. But again, I think there's some talk there of Hyundai, or at least Korea, investing in this mine as well, because there are many places around the world that want to secure some of these polymetallic deposits because they want to make sure that they've got access to those.
I was going to say, so directly linked then. So they've got that supply chain sorted out.
That's right. And maybe the supply chain comes from China at the moment, so they'd like to have some supply chain from other countries. And the other part that's exciting here is that we've got renewables here, as we know.
Yep.
We'll be able to deliver net zero. When I say we, the Australian Strategic Minerals, be able to deliver net zero for some of these, which is very important. A lot of companies saying we want net zero on our input, on our supply chain, because we want to be able to deliver a net zero final product. And to do that, we need the supply chain to be net zero as well. So that all lines up quite nicely. So it is a major announcement, and it's exciting for Dubbo, and just another thing that's happening in Dubbo that's going to inject money into our economy.
Yeah, another major project. I love it. Now, speaking about Korea, we just sort of mentioned just then, delegation, council delegations, it's about to head over to Korea and Japan. So talk us through, you mentioned Hyundai. Is there other reasons you're heading across there? And as a part of the sister city thing, is it as well?
Well, we're looking to develop a sister city relationship.
Okay, so we don't actually have one just yet?
Not with anywhere in Korea.
Right,
and so
we've got Minakamo.
We've got Minakamo. So this visit will involve councillors, involve members of the public. We're going to Korea. Not all of us are going to Korea. Going to Korea, though, and then on to Japan. And we like to do delegations and establish tighter links and work out how we can have trade links with these various places. The reason we chose Korea to go across this time was because of Australian Strategic Minerals, to basically look at how we might tighten those relationships. So I've got a meeting booked with the ambassador from Australia to Korea, so that's booked in Seoul. I've also got a meeting booked with Hyundai Engineering Corp, so talking about them, and I've met them before in Australia and meeting them and talking about those. And then we're going on to Shenzhou, hopefully I pronounced that right, which is where ASM does actually have an office at the moment. And again, it's all about confidence.
ASM, who are they?
This is Australian Strategic Minerals.
Oh, sorry,
this
is the company group for the Toongi mine. Okay, sorry, right.
And if they've got confidence that the local council is supportive of their project. The local council looks like they've got their act together. They're a modern progressive council. If Hyundai or Korea in general wants to invest in this mine, giving them that confidence just helps with that investment. So I'm not over there saying, please sign the dotted line, please give them money, but it's just really to build that relationship and give them confidence that Dubbo is a good place for them to invest.
Isn't that a big part of the Asian culture as well, with it, developing relationships, showing that respect and showing the fact you're over there to speak to them directly about these sort of things as well?
Exactly. And one of the places we're looking at potentially building that sister relationship with is Chengzhou. And again, we talked to various representatives in Korea and say, where should we look at? And the fact that ASM had a base there was a good reason to start that. And then we'll go into Japan, Minakamo. We haven't been to Minakamo for several years, obviously COVID related, but again, continue to establish that relationship. I've been there twice before on official visits. And let me just remind people that Dubbo Regional Council is not paying any money for any councillors, any members of councillors' families, any of our representatives from Dubbo who are going over. Now, keep in mind,
why is that? Like, I'm happy to sort of to question that for you in regards to why you need to do that. Like, it's if you're going across there from the point of view of there's official council business you're doing with this, yet the expectation is there is the fact that the delegates are all paying for this themselves. Well, why isn't council offering some sort of a financial input into this?
It was a policy that was created more than 20 years ago because there was some accusation potentially or some inference that councillors were going overseas on junkets and spending ratepayers' money just to have a fun trip overseas. And even though, yes, you're officially representing Australia or representing your council, there is a cost, if you like, of that, and it's a large cost. Flying overseas is
it's not
an
cheap.
expensive
Just about
process.
do it myself. I know how expensive it is. That's right.
So I think the idea was that this wasn't seen as the best way to spend council money. So sure, let's keep those relationships going, but if councils want to do it, they'll do it at their own expense. Now, there would be an argument to say, let's change that policy and let's have it so that delegations with certain limitations, and I know other councils do it. I'm actually quite comfortable with the policy. I'm okay with that policy because there is a major expense there and there is a benefit that's gained by the people of Dubbo, a benefit that's gained internationally around that. But is that the best way to spend council money? Are we better off spending that money on filling potholes, for example? So I'm okay with that. Even though there is a benefit, it's probably a small benefit compared to the amount you might pay. Now, if ASM comes off and it starts producing minerals and we've got this great employment in Dubbo, you'd say it's a fantastic benefit for Dubbo. But again, you're probably looking at just continue to build those international relationships. So you could put forward an argument. Again, I know other councils do. When I talk to other councils around the state, as you do at various meetings, and I say our policy is we won't pay for it. Oh, that's crazy. You should be having those expenses covered. It's unfair that you're covering those expenses. But that's the policy we've got. I'm quite comfortable with that policy. The one that I suppose I become a little bit disappointed about sometimes is that we've got citizens of Dubbo that are not members of council that are coming on this delegation as well. Now, they're paying for all of that themselves. So they are representing Dubbo. They're not even on council and they're still representing Dubbo on this trip. And sometimes I end up reading things on social media or in the paper to say, oh, look at these people. They're basically getting a free trip to wherever it might be, Seoul or Korea or Japan, wherever, and council's paying for that. This is extremely rude that these people are basically taking public money and paying for that. It's not. They're paying for all of this themselves. There is no cost to Dubbo Regional Council for any of us that are going overseas. So I want to make that clear, even though I'm sure we'll read about it on social media. That
I'm sure we will.
And another waste of ratepayers' money.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's one of those sort of things too whereby and I'm sitting here and I take my hat off to you, the fact, and to every one of the delegates who's going across, and the fact you are doing this off your own bat, and it's you're paying for all of this yourself. Because honestly, as a citizen of Dubbo, I would have no issues with any of you getting subsidised at least something there to go across. If you're representing us as a community, if I'm in a business, if I'm an employee in a business, and I've been told I've got to go to Cairns for a conference, for a national conference, would I expect the business to pay that for me? Even though we're going to Cairns and it sounds all very exotic, I'm not going to be up there sitting on the reef. I'm going to be at a conference doing what the conference thing is to do for the benefit of the business. So So therefore, okay, so be it, we're in Cairns. That's the spot we're going to go to. Same thing with this, is the fact you're going overseas. You may sound exotic going across to Korea and Japan. You're not heading out to Disneyland and things like this there. You're going across there to represent Dubbo. You're going to represent us with some of these major companies who potentially could come back and input huge amounts of money in here to us as a community. So all kudos to you. But as I said, I'd have been more than happy to say, yeah, subsidise these people. They're representing us. So anyway, that's just my opinion.
Thank you. And it's full on. So
absolutely.
When you get there, again, previous ones I've been on, you picked up usually early in the morning, you've got people to meet, and I ended up doing one thing over there one time in a supermarket where they were promoting Australian beef. Yep. So we were walking around a supermarket as an Aussie and as the mayor of a council, and I had meat samples that were basically handing out these nice little cooked meat samples to people to say, try Aussie beef. So you're doing things all day. Yep. Probably the most fun thing I've done is teaching the mayor of Minakama how to throw a boomerang, and it even came back occasionally, so I'm not the expert boomerang thrower, but things like that. So you're doing a whole range of things. But
you're building relationships. That's what you're doing, which is so important. We talked about not just within the Asian cultures, within so many cultures. It's so important to have those relationships become a face to a name, when you're across there. And so when they're having these discussions at that higher level, they're sitting back going, where are we going to go? Well, Dubbo, the mayor there, that Matt Dickerson, and that delegation that came out here, wonderful people, really trustworthy, respectful, all this sort of stuff. We've got a really good relationship with these people. I can do business with these people. So, absolutely.
And you look at the Japanese garden, what a great thing that we have there.
There's Exhibit A, isn't it? That's
as a direct result of a relationship with Minakama. So, anyway, I'm comfortable with the policy. That is the policy.
Yeah, good on you.
So
well
that's
done.
fine. And we'll report back on how things go on our trip.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing about it. That'll be good. All right. Last little one here to talk about here, Matt, in regards to the Sydney Council removing the public forum. This is an interesting little one. So within any council meeting, there's the opportunity to have a public forum where people can sit and to watch respectfully what takes place within a council meeting. It appears as though there's been a Sydney council that has decided that they're going to close the doors once the councillors are in there and the meeting begins, and no one from the public's allowed in. Is this
you're not quite sorry that no one from the public is allowed to address the council.
Oh, so they can
still be able to spectate.
Oh, so they can spectate, but they can't address. Okay,
So
right.
the public forum, the part of a meeting,
like a gagging order almost.
well, there's a part of the meeting at our council meeting, for example, and every council across the state that I've been aware of, which is called public forum, which basically allows people to address. And our code of meeting practice says you've got 5 minutes, no more. You've got 5 minutes to address council, typically about a topic on the agenda, but it's basically anything you like within reason. And so that's something that we have, and we've got certain time limits on the total time frame for that. And that's something I think is really important about that. But I did notice during the week that Lane Cove has basically said that they're not allowing that anymore. A council brought
Lane
forward
Cove?
Yeah.
Wow, I would not have picked that. Okay.
And so they'll no longer, so residents will no longer be able to address meetings of Lane Cove Council.
Yeah, right.
And the reasons given were quite interesting. They talked about the fact that it was done from an occupational health and safety process because some of the language and behaviour from community members directed at mainly staff and sometimes the councillors was not appropriate. So they've made this drastic move. Now, in general, I found our public forums always to be very respectful. There have been a couple of times in this council where we've had some people stand up and they start directing comments that are not pleasant at it's probably been more at our staff than councils, more our councillors than council staff, but they've had both. And my job as the chair of that is to stop those people and say, that's not appropriate. Please withhold those type of comments and continue on putting your point forward without making it about a personal issue with a council or a council staff member. So people have respected that. And
so you never had a reason to eject a person like in that situation?
No, I never had a reason to eject someone. Okay. And as much as I don't like it when people get personal in their comments, people are typically, when they're pulled up about it, they typically have pulled back. But that's been very rare. Public forum, I actually really enjoy public forum. I enjoy the fact that people can come along and talk about items and we can hear from those items. It's not a Q&A, and sometimes people get frustrated with that. They would like to say, okay, now what do council laws think about this, or what are you going to do about that? And they wait for an answer. And I've had to explain to some people that it's not designed to be a Q&A because that would just get out of hand and drag on. It really is a potential for them to put their points forward. They do that, we take that on board, and then typically it's about an item on the agenda for that council meeting, and that's been something extra that the public have been able to put forward those views. So I do find it interesting, and I'm not having a go at Lane Cove here, but I suppose what's interesting about it is the fact that we are getting to the point where maybe that democratic process for some places is just being abused, I suppose, by the public rather than respected by the public. And respect's a two-way street. If they want to be able to have that respectful conversation, they've got to show respect.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
Is it maybe also a byproduct of the fact that the world we're living in today, due to things like social media and some of the, we talk about this on many occasions, the diatribe and the vitriol that sort of goes across from the social media, is it now starting to move into these type of forums, which are normally meant to be incredibly respectful forums, unless you're a parliamentarian at state or federal government, but certainly on a local level, it's always a very respectful place.
Yeah, I would like to think it stays a respectful place, and we want our councillors to behave in that way. And if councillors get up, and we talked about it before with state and federal parliament, if councillors get up and start talking in a non-respectful way or not being respectful in the way they address each other and even talk about the public, then the public might see that's an opportunity for them to do the same thing. And I don't know, I'm not making any comment about Lane Cove council meetings and council laws and how they behave, but I'd be disappointed if the public saw councillors behaving respectfully and then come along and not behave in that same way.
Well, it's interesting. It's got to that point now where, a council like Lane Cove has got to the point where they feel as though they need to now put this in place.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right. Got to that time of the week. You've had a very, very, very busy week this week in regards to sitting on a bike in particular. The council meeting was quite extensive, quite a few things there to talk about. What are you going to have for your limerick of the week this week?
Well, because I am sitting down while we do this and because it's still sore while I sit down.
I was going to say, it surprised me you're not sort of switching around a bit in your backside there a bit. Must be just too numb or something.
I'm clenching from side to side without you seeing. So I thought I'd better do it about Tour OROC because it is a significant fundraising event. At the end of this event, we'll probably, I don't think we'll crack $900,000, but we'll certainly be over $800,000 that Tour OROC has raised for Macquarie Homestay. So it is
up to
a
$1 million.
event.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
wonderful.
and it does engage the whole region, and it really is quite good when you go into each of those regions. In fact, Cobar, the welcoming committee in Cobar, we normally have the fire truck in Cobar spraying a water cannon across the road.
Right.
That's fantastic. We have the police there doing a
Would have
police
been greatly
escort.
appreciated on a 30-plus degree day, I'm sure.
Except it was raining a little bit on Saturday when we came in, so we didn't need the rain. But the welcoming committee, there would have been probably 100 people there, adults, kids, just cheering us in.
You felt like a real celebrity.
Well, it's a buzz for the riders coming in, having people cheer for them like that. So anyway, I thought I'd better do the limerick this week on Tour OROC. So here we go. From Dubbo, the cyclists took flight. With Tour de OROC they rode with delight. Through sunshine and rain, no complaints, but some pain. Their fundraising goal well in sight.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well done. Well, mate, that sort of does it for me for about 2 months. I'm going to be off air for a little while, but have a wonderful couple of months, mate. We'll catch up with you, in about 2 months' time.
Enjoy your overseas trip, and we'll miss you for the next 2 months. We'll find someone to fill in for you, but hopefully we'll welcome you back in 2 months.
To everyone out there, you guys take care.
Straight from the mayor's mouth with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.